Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm joined by my brother in crime, a man who never sweats when ordering an appetizer, a man who knows the difference between al dente and arancini. He is at optimal roasting temperature 24 hours a day. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in the hot seat. I would normally just say, it's been kind of a flambe kind of day, but the weather outside is a little bit more in the sub-zero category.
Okay.
It might be a little man, I can't think of the term right now, and I was going to nail that. Frozen custard comes to mind.
You know what? You're being too hard on yourself. I wish you'd just take it over easy.
Chili as far as CHILI. All of those things.
My God, we could go all day, and hopefully the longer we go, the better they would get. Because when it comes to my food puns, that is not something that I'm well skilled in. So hopefully it would work out a bit better than just making references to ranch dressing.
Really dirty, really quick.
That's true.
Any food references, it just goes there. So.
Well, I mean, when we're talking about today's title, I don't think we want to try and go in that vein. Otherwise, it might. Honestly, it would bury the lead a lot because this movie that we're talking about was not romantic.
Well, should we talk about the rawness of it? Should we go medium rare, or should we go well done?
I think that when we. Well, I'm done. I think that whenever we are talking about any kind of film that has to deal with culinary drama, you have to start where everybody has to start with in the real life, Andrus, and that is the menu.
Is that going to fit everyone?
Yeah, easily. 12 customers total.
How do they turn a profit?
$12.50 a head. That's how.
What are we eating? A Rolex?
It's one of his classics. You have to try the mouthfeel of the mignonette.
Please don't say mouthful.
Tonight will be madness.
Welcome. We'll endeavor to make your evening as pleasant as possible.
Welcome to Hawthorne.
Here we are family. We harvest, we ferment, we gel.
They gel.
We gel.
He's not just a chef, he's a storyteller. The game is trying to guess what the overarching theme of the entire meal is going to be. You won't know till the end.
Who are you?
I am Margot. Why do you care?
I have to know if you're with us or with them. This menu.
The pictures, they're of us.
This guest list.
How did he get these?
It's not good. This entire evening.
This is just theater. It's stagecraft.
We're leaving now. Has been painstakingly planned.
This is real, isn't it?
What the hell is going on?
We now offer you a 45-second head start. Okay, 45 seconds starts now. This is what you're paying for.
Get out of my way.
It's all part of the menu.
It's okay.
No, we're gonna die tonight.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you.
You told him it was my birthday?
Seemed funny about 3 hours ago.
And that was the trailer to the menu, everybody. This was definitely a surprise for me, and we're going to jump into everything. All the courses, all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is going to be huge spoilers area. So we're addressing it early this time in the episode.
Spoiler alerts! Spoiler alerts!
If you have not seen the menu, then stop this podcast right now, watch it, and then come on back and let us know what you think. But before we even get into it, Andrus, I want to congratulate you on helping me with this podcast. We are going on over 60 episodes on this thing, and this is granted we record these and publish them, outside of time and that kind of stuff. But just for those who might be interested, this is our first episode of 2023. So happy belated New Year to you, my friend!
Yay, 2023! I think we might be out of the woods of 2020. What do you think? 3 years?
Maybe. I'm hoping so. I know that of the, let me think here. We have roughly 67, 68 some odd episodes on the docket right now, and easily like a good 20 some odd of those, maybe more. We do add in the blurb, like, we have to give this thing a little bit of contention or a little bit of consideration because it was produced during COVID and new laws are being put in thing. I think we've gotten to the point now where we can stop saying that. Where it's just the point now where things have, obviously.
Well, you mean until the next global pandemic or atrocity or major whatever we have to go through. Yeah. So
that's refreshing.
I think that this one's the perfect movie to talk about in 2023. Let's get it going.
Yeah, let's go. We'll jump right into it. So from the IMDb synopsis, the menu. Expecting nothing less than the best of everything Hawk Cuisine has to offer, a group of ultra-wealthy gastronomes with a demanding palate arrive at the Hawthorne, an exclusive culinary temple run by highly regarded gourmet chef Julian Slovik. And prepared for an exquisite multiple-course meal and the experience of a lifetime, obsessive Epicurean Tyler and his unimpressed +1 Margot enter the private minimalist restaurant. At last, the long wait is over. However, no one knows that the cryptic genius in the kitchen has big plans for tonight. After all, the imperious culinary artist has been stretching the boundaries of taste and fine dining for decades. Now, the host can finally unveil his magnum opus. But is the blasé clientele ready for Julian's creative madness? And the answer is no, which we'll be talking about specifically in regards to this. The menu. This one was interesting, Andrus. We're dealing with a pretty rigorous kind of production schedule on this. The development was pushed through with Will Tracy coming from an expensive restaurant in Norway, going about and finding a couple of things in regards to the way that Will Tracy was the person who wrote the story by it, with the screenplay with help with Seth Reese, and it was directed by Mark Malloyd, who has been able to do things with The Big White, What's Your Number. This is his fourth feature in his career to be looked at when it comes to generally some nominations here. We had some Golden Globe nods because of Ralph Fiennes' performance in regards to this. We have a pretty stellar cast with some of the people that we've had the pleasure of talking about before: Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Janet McTeer, Paul Adelstein, and a really wonderful bit part by John Leguizamo and Reed Birney. One of my personal favorites, Amy Carrero, who has come about and been doing some things in the voiceover world and also in other bits of online stuff that I've been a part of and part of their community. It's been interesting to see how a lot of people who have had established careers are mixing with some people that are a little bit less established but still very capable of what they're doing. Not only from the cast perspective, but also from the production perspective. I mean, when we talk about Mark Malloyd, he has done a lot of television, but he's only done a handful of features, and this one is definitely one of the ones that has been the most lauded since he started doing film back in 2002, roughly. We open up with this incredible kind of opening when it comes to the different characters that are popping in here, and this is kind of like a bit of like a Murder, She Wrote kind of fashion. We get a quick soliloquy of who the characters are, what they might be caring about, and ultimately they all share the same facet where they're all people who are rich. They're all people who are roughly disorganized and disrespectful to people who are below them on the financial scale. And then we get a breath of fresh air with Anya Taylor-Joy's Margot, who has come about, and she's the common sense amongst all these people who are used to eating oysters and caviar, who are used to paying $2,000 for a steak, who are used to talking down to people when they're not listened to, when they tell them how big their wallets are. And we're able to use that character as a vessel for the audience as we go about and are provided numerous chances to see how how cringy a lot of these characters are when we find out what's really happening behind the kitchen table here. The entire cast is brought onto this island to a restaurant called the Hawthorne, one with filming primarily in Georgia, and also coming about with the beach shots coming up on I think it was Stranger's Island, or let me think if I can double check on that really quickly. It was a pretty reductive shoot in the idea that we weren't dealing with super blockbuster stuff happening here. This wasn't a Star Wars movie or anything like that by any imagination. It was, we run at least from time to time, right, Andrus, where we have something that would fit very well into a theater, kind of like a theatrical production with minimal set design, though it was good sets popping up, and a pretty easily developed story. What was kind of hitting me from the back of the head was the way in which this production really leaned into giving the stink eye to privileged people, and how they were able to finally get their, pardon me, but their just desserts in the end. Sure. When, like any kind of murder mystery or kind of like pop horror or kind of black comedy stuff that we see the remnants of this movie depicting, we find out who these people really are through retconning, and then finding out specifically how bad they were and how much they deserved what they got. So one of the things that really kind of impressed me about it was that, it's nothing that I haven't seen before. I mean, these things go back to this was established back in the 80s when we saw Clue, that kind of stuff, that kind of element coming about and getting things taken care of. But this wasn't marketed as such a tongue-in-cheek black comedy horror film that the trailers brought out early on when this was first coming out. What were your initial thoughts? Because I know that we both kind of gleamed over the trailers a little bit, but then in the first 10 minutes, I think you can tell this is not what was promised. Were you pleasantly surprised when you were getting introduction to the characters? I'm sure that you were able to recognize some of the some of the tactics that were used here when it came to telling the story, which were fine and good and familiar, which I find nice. But what were your initial thoughts going into it when Margot was coming out and you see these people coming onto a boat and we find out that they're getting this tour by all this stuff popping up?
It's kind of funny because another one that we talked about recently was The Glass Onion, and this had a lot of similar
it was quirky,
similar elements to The Glass Onion that I didn't really think I was going to make that comparison, but there is. I mean, there's somebody that shouldn't be there that is there, right, and adapting to that amidst everything is kind of fun. You feel a little bit, I think, like an outsider, and I think you're supposed to jump on board with Margot as far as what her journey is.
She's definitely the audience in this movie for sure.
And even with just her wardrobe and how she doesn't fit in with the elite socialite mentality.
Yeah, she sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, or definitely not with Tyler. Anyway, she does not fit with Tyler.
Right.
Why they're together in this journey is something of a thought. So.
Nicholas Hoult definitely going back and throwing down what I like to call the professional nerdism of characters that pop up. He does such a good job of not a nerd, but he definitely plays a great dweeb. That I like to put in. He comes out as Tyler, who is this Instagram
douche comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that does pop up though is that when it came to Tyler, I was wondering what his sins were, why he deserved to be there. Because the first act is following what we would do with like a usual kind of murder mystery kind of thing, a Murder, She Wrote kind of situation, or like an Orient Express kind of situation. We are provided the characters, and we know right away ultimately who they are. And then the fun stuff about movies like this is that they will do what they can in a creative way to show you why they are there. There's the reveal of the reason as to why they're bad. The first act is all about just setting up the world. We have this island that is... the only way you can get there is by ferry, by boat. You have
isolated, secluded.
Exactly. You have a number of people with certain points of exposition, letting you know who they are. Janet McTeer's dialogue is pretty smart, which she talks about past reviews that she's made as a food critic. Paul Adelstein does a great job as always. When he plays these characters where just like these sycophants who come about and they're there to prop up other characters by just constantly commenting him. He has always been able to play the swarmy yes man so very well, and it's always a joy to watch him when he does that kind of stuff. The beautiful thing about this cast, though, I think, is that I could tell that even though all of them had played these parts before in other roles, to me at least it didn't feel like they were phoning it in. What was your initial kind of interpretation? Because like I wasn't able to see what was going to happen. I wasn't able to predict a lot on this movie when it came to specifics. The generalizations I was able to find out. I knew that there was going to be introduction of characters. There was going to be some action in the middle. There was going to be some, Margot was going to provide some friction, and they were going to find out, the big reveal that everybody's going to die at the end. But what pops up here, I think, is that, pardon the pun, there's like this slow burn that I really do enjoy with movies like this because it's holding the carrot right before the horse, and they prolong these scenes by going about and breaking it up with first course. Then we have this beautiful shot of of the beach and everything. Then second course, and like the first few courses do the old joke where it's like we're serious about the name of the dish that these people are eating. Then by the sixth course, it's like yeah, pretty good cheeseburger. By Julian Slovic. And I love the course before the last one where it was like what Tyler's bullshit lamb because he was caught off guard and before he hangs himself. Oh man, we're knocking out the spoilers.
There's like 15 in there.
I know. There's just him trying to trying to make a dish of like lamb and scallops and that kind of thing. What was, though, the things that knocked you out of balance first? Because for me, I thought the shots in this were really beautiful. It was colorful. They really did an excellent job of being able to provide these really just lovely little vignettes of each scene, like a play. It was really like watching a play when they were zooming in on the food, and then the action then take over, mostly from like really well written like dialogue and that kind of thing. What were the first things to kind of set you off balance, do you think, when you were watching this in the first act at least?
I would have to go back to feeling like you don't belong there. I mean, I would
that's actually a great way of putting it.
If you've been in that world and you understand that world, I think that you might even say the same thing. Well, this is off. Something's not right. There's something. There's
an undertone,
intangible about how you feel about it. I don't know. I'm speaking for people that I don't normally socialize with, but the idea of everybody
having a dark secret, or
just like doing this because they can, or because of the invite, or because the movie star role, John Leguizamo, I think did a really great job as far as what his part was, which is, yes, he's a recognizable movie star. Yes, he's there with somebody that absolutely despises who he is.
Yeah, Carrero did a great
job. Still willing to be there on his coattails in order to either get something from him or something out of the experience.
That is one thing I can agree with 100%. Like the way in which the character development came out through here, just through the dialogue, was actually really entertaining. I really do enjoy the idea of, again, the slow burn. You see these people coming about, and we know who they are right off the bat. These are some snobs that know a lot about food, that don't give a crap about other people, and they're just here to be here, but they're going to be surprised by what happens. And then we find out specifically why they were chosen by Chef Slovic to go about and bring them here. And they do that through these different vignettes, these courses. We find out that, roughly by like the third or fourth course, where they have like the tacos being brought out, and the cooks have actually laser printed on the tortillas the crimes that they've done before, and that's the reason as to why they're here. And we see like, how Janet McTeer's character put up some bad reviews for the sake of putting them up. We see how John Leguizamo starred in the movie that Chef Slovic watched on his one day off, and he ended up hating it. Reed Birney was just a narcissist, a rich guy who didn't appreciate the food that was getting put through. I really liked the frat boy kind of
trio.
NST kind of stock bro that were brought forth by Arturo Castro, Mark St. Cyr, and Rob Yang. with Bryce Soren and Dave, and just the way in which they just leaned in to just being complete jackasses. And then when the button is pushed, that group is the first one where you see like they really get what's going on. They really get that they're going to be killed and murdered because they were playing with funds from Slovic's kitchen and that kind of thing. And I loved it when I've seen Arturo Castro do other things like this before. He's a very emotive actor, and he does a really great job of when given the chance to like be physical. To really, you can really see the terror in his eyes when his character realizes what's going on. He tries to get out of there and realize he's just not capable of doing it. And I think also that my second favorite character, it's a tie between Chef and between Margot, of course, because Margot is there to introduce friction. And Anya Taylor-Joy, I mean, especially after seeing her in Queen's Gambit, I would expect nothing less from this actress, but like somebody who is, you know, willing to go against the grain, willing to stand up for themselves, willing to fight for what they believe in, that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. Even if it means that they just don't like the fact that the bread course didn't have any bread in it, but was infusions of balsamic vinegar and everything. She's there to offer friction. What I really did love, though, was Peter Gross as a sommelier, and how he was able to go about and just smooth things over like a robot between each act. Well, not each act, but between each course. And just the hilarious things he was talking about with the wine, where he says, slight notes of cherry, tobacco, and the remembrance of a sweet regret. And that kind of stuff that's pushing through.
If you've ever had a sommelier introduce wine to you, there is that element to it. It's ridiculous.
But did you am I kind of like blowing smoke? I mean, was there really a slow burn here? Did you see that things kind of like went really sudden, really fast towards the inevitable end of what happens? I mean, especially after Jeremy, played by Adam Aldrich, goes about and shoots himself kills himself for one of the courses that popped in.
There's the slow burn definitely happened, and I think I've got to give the staff cast credit to that, because Elsa was terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the way that she judged Margot when we're first introduced to her, it wasn't like, oh no, you're not the right person and we're happy to accommodate. There was a definite, you should not be here.
Absolutely.
And there was, yeah.
I think that when you're dealing with somebody who's so good at playing the quiet superiority card, Elsa played by Hong Chau, great at just being the person in the corner that you know is judging you, but without saying anything.
And even she was in so much control, shutting down the frat boys.
100%.
And, very respectful in a sense, but in such a judgmental, like,
that's the sign of a true professional. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I mean, it's just like, I don't want to go to a restaurant where people treat me like crap. I want to go to a restaurant where they treat me with respect as I'm the customer and all of that stuff, right?
Right.
But the mentality of her kind of
like, you're not going to piss me off. You're not going to make me go down to your level, but you will do what I say.
Controlling and handling these people, right? I thought that was quite lovely. And then just like, as ridiculous as the presentations were from Fiennes, it was a ridiculous introduction to every single course.
It really was.
I'm so glad we didn't have that on the boat, the ferry going in.
Yes,
like the appetizer round,
absolutely.
So that we could have our own kind of, do we like what are they called? Oysters or not? Right?
Yeah.
And then just like forming your own opinion rather than having the chef make this gigantic presentation, this epic speech as far as where it came from and how you're supposed to feel about it. It's just like, or we could just eat.
Yeah. And it's like the battle of the pompous attitudes. Really, it's the battle of prestige. I think when we get to the first act, and obviously, like I mentioned before, characters introduced. We know who their archetype are. We know what's going to happen, and then we get into just a brief introduction to the backstories and where people are coming from. By the time the second act comes through, like around course 3 or 4, at that point we see after the suicide of Adam Elder's character Jeremy, things begin to go through, and you can tell that the scales have been taken from the eyes of the audience. We know there's some stuff going on, but luckily the cast are still hanging on to the thread that maybe this is part of the performance, and that's how the second act begins. But that's also, as is traditional when it comes to movies that are like this, we get more information into the reason as to why people are here and to the motivation behind Chef Svelvik doing what he's doing. This is the information phase. This is where people come about and they'll see, well, these are the reasons as to why these people are here. These are the reasons as to why these things are going to happen, and you're all going to die tonight. But there's the rub where we see Margot coming in, and Margot is, kind of, again, I hate to bring it up, but, she is the Queen's Gambit in this situation because she's the piece in the whole puzzle that Svelvik didn't realize. And that also provides us a chance to see a point of empathy with Ralph Fiennes' character, because he doesn't want Margot to die because she doesn't deserve to be there. She wasn't anybody who did him harm. She was just there because we find out that Tyler got that invitation, and despite knowing that he would be killed tonight after the dinner, he is such a sycophant for Chef Svelvik's work that he decided to come anyway. But because they don't serve single tables at the Hawthorne, he had to find a date. And through that whole bit of dialogue, we also find out that Margot is actually a prostitute. She's a sex worker, and she came in because she was hired to by Tyler. She also has history with Reed Birney's character because she, worked with him when it came to him having an affair and cheating on Judith Light's character, Anne. When we go through, though, I thought it was interesting to see how the acts themselves were cut up into their own different little sections. Again, much like a stage play. Was that abrupt for you, or were you able to see, because I was comfortable with this because I knew where it was going after the second act. It's like, okay, I know where you guys are going through. I know what's happening. I had to pause it a couple times because things got so cringe in a good way, because I was feeling bad for the people who had to deal with just the privileged idiots that were being served. I had to stop and just carry on. But did you find that as being an abrupt kind of situation, or was it like a smooth transition? And did that come because we're familiar with this story structure, or was it like, you have a much better way of predicting these things, how they're going to happen, than I do?
No, this one caught me off guard. I had no idea.
Why did it catch you off guard, do you think?
Just because of I had no information going into it. I mean, we talked about doing a review. This movie came up as one. I'm like, yeah, sure. I saw the thing. I thought it was a menu about cannibalism.
Right.
Like that. So I mean, I was way off.
Well, I don't think that's your fault. The trailers were not marketing this movie.
I mean, it had to do with the food. It had to do with the people there and all of that. But I thought they were going to start killing and serving people there, or they were the next round for the next group, and the previous group was feeding the
right.
Whatever. I had no idea.
I did think that in the smoking pit there was a situation. I wanted to rewind. I wanted to see if I saw a human foot or something hanging there or something like that.
But I mean, I wasn't really expecting a horror movie.
Yeah.
I was expecting more of a dark movie.
Yeah,
for sure,
something creepy.
But no, I feel like the way that they set this up, it was very much a character driven piece, and I was just along for the ride. And some of the acting in there is what really put me into the story.
100%.
Because once fingers are severed and people are being lowered into the shark pit.
Oh my God, that was great.
I mean, it just crazy things start to happen, and then you start to realize how delusional half this group is.
Yes.
And how self-serving everybody else is. And it's kind of interesting because even the way that it ended, I still feel like everybody should have been blown up on that island.
Oh, period. Yeah.
Because I mean, at the end, it's a very self-serving. There we go again.
Yeah.
As selfish and self-serving ending.
Yeah.
And I didn't really find it to be redemptive. I just feel like somebody got to survive this crazy endeavor to go tell the story. I would have loved it if just
everybody just closed off,
just annihilated.
Well, I think that brings up the situation too, where it pops up. We've had that discussion before, where it's been, well, why not kill off the main character? Right? Why not make it so that these things happen if we want to have a realistic view of things?
I mean, if you look at everybody's demons in this,
yeah,
all of them you can validate here or there.
Yeah, given Svelvik's logic.
I mean, every
100%.
single one of them. I mean, is there an opportunity for forgiveness and redemption with all of these characters? Absolutely.
Yeah, except for the food critic.
Is that being taken away from them?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, that's because we don't get to see, and that's one thing that I did enjoy about it, because to your point, the reason that's why we don't get a choice is because we're not judge, jury, and executioner in this dialogue. It's Slovik was judge, jury, and executioner. He and this cult that he has behind him who are cooking in the kitchen are the ones that decide what's going on. Well, Slovik is the one that decides what's going on. And one of the things that I did like is the way in which, by the end of the second act, you realize his logic behind it. To kind of like build off what you said, you do really realize how depraved he is as a person. And I'm just happy that at least we have, like, you know, this psycho, insane antagonist who has a reason behind his madness. And one of the main ways in which we can find some sort of redemption in him as a villain is because, again, what you mentioned, it being a character piece, these little vignettes, I hate using the word vignette because it really isn't a vignette, but these little parts of the scenes where we see Margot in the back office with him and he gets real and he is able to, like, you know, actually talk to her and tell her what's going on. He says, these people ruined my art. They took away my soul. I used to love cooking. I used to do this and that. And like that line that he has when Margot finally tells him that she is a sex worker and that she's here because she was invited as a replacement, he comes about and he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, well, then, like me, you're familiar what it means to serve people who are undeserving of our service, or something along those lines. And that really is what the key to this is. Slovik, as Ralph Fiennes does wonderfully. I'm such a huge Ralph Fiennes fan, too. I mean, just, you look at this man's repertoire, and, like, Schindler's List all the way up to, like, Harry Potter. I don't think this guy has done a bad job ever. Like with Spider and that, I mean, it's just ridiculous. When you lean back on talent like that, I was expecting him to go about and just have, like, you know, the usual thing that we see with him. We have such a mastery of having this refined, creepy, quiet solitude that he brings to the screen, and then when it's put abruptly against Joy's just usual caricature of, not a caricature, that's the wrong word, just flexibility when it comes to being boisterous and bright, we have, like, you know, a yin and yang kind of situation popping up. But did it take too much of the spotlight away from what this movie was supposed to do, which was provide, like, you know, a creepy story and have it be an ensemble piece? Do you think that, like, maybe Fiennes and Joy got, like, maybe too much of the story, or do you think it was pretty well balanced? Because this was an ensemble piece. It's like you said, it's a character-driven movie. How are you supposed to do that when you concentrate on just the protagonist and the antagonist? I mean, obviously, in regular movies, that's all it is. Good versus bad. Woman or man versus nature, blah, blah, blah. But not with this. It needs to be a situation where we have everybody gets their point at the spotlight. Everybody adds their spice to the concoction, for lack of a better term, and it carries on. But they didn't do that all throughout this film. They centered on Fiennes and Joy, and that, I honestly, I know why that was necessary, because it gave Slovik the reason. It was an out to literally talk to Joy, who is the audience. She's a personification of the audience, to explain why he's doing certain things. And I think that they could have just done that with, like, playing it with, like, a different point of exposition, besides literally taking the audience, sitting us down, and telling us what's happening. I thought that might have been, I thought that slowed things down a little bit. What were your feelings about that?
I don't know. I was thinking about it as you were talking, and I was trying to play a bunch of different scenarios in my head as far as what would make more sense, or what would be a better standout. And I'm not sure what that would be, other than like completely flipping the relationship between Margot and Tyler, in the sense of, well, I was thinking, well, what if she was his sister? Well, then we're not really discovering their relationship because they already have an existing relationship.
Yeah.
And, you know, she would still be the odd woman out, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then, like, what if it was just happenstance? Oh, random stranger, you're attractive. Do you want to go on this fancy dinner with me? Do you like food?
Well, it was their first date, but yeah, I can respect where you're coming from.
But the fact that he hired her,
there's an understanding. Yeah.
They're, you know, I mean, there's a stigma of wrong when it comes to prostitution. Right. So, I mean, that there's a whole different side of judgment on all of these people's sins. Right. So what if this person was free from sin that was there?
That's interesting.
And that makes a lot of true innocence, such as a child, right?
Well, in the sense she was free of sin in Slovik's eyes, right?
Well, yes, but she's already at that point also admitted that she's a professional sex worker, which is that right or wrong? In some people's eyes, it's very wrong.
It's interesting they say that.
Eyes, it's like, well, you could, you do you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
But is that, I mean, she's an adulterer.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. Because
why is Reed Birney's Richard character at fault and she is not? There's some hypocrisy in the idea behind that for me because they brought up that relationship.
I can see why you would think that, but
so I don't know why he wouldn't just flip and say, well, you deserve to be here too. You're all dead.
I think it's just because they really lean into just the ego of Ralph Fiennes' character, and like the judge and jury is really taken through the filter of what he believes to be wrong. And I really do enjoy the fact that at the very least he tells us why. And we go about...
and here's my argument to that is she has not played along the entire time. Why isn't she deserving of death because of that?
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I can respect...
She was defiant the entire time. Well, you're not even going to eat.
Right.
It doesn't work if you don't eat.
You're right. He says you're ruining everything. I've planned this perfectly, and I haven't planned for you.
Right. So, I mean, that puts him at fault, and that challenges his ego, gives him the opportunity to have that exchange. It gives him the opportunity to then make a decision on, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on our side or your side?
Right. Are you a taker or are you a server?
You are going to be there. She found a loophole, and good for her for finding a loophole. I
do want to talk about that scene.
One of sex workers' superpowers, right?
Yeah.
They know how to read people and how to work that to their benefit. But for me, it was a little bit. It didn't fit for me because it landed with so many more questions than if this was a true innocent. I think it would have been great if it was like more of a child situation.
I think it would have been easier. I don't think it would have been better, but I can understand completely where you're coming from, because you do put up that argument where it's like, this guy's already a psycho and he's killing.
He's a sociopath.
Sociopath, exactly. That's a much better word. And he's killing people specifically because, I mean, we'll talk about Richard and Anne again. I mean, Judith Light, her character Anne, she didn't do anything to deserve to be killed by this guy. She just followed in the footsteps of her husband, Richard, and they went to this restaurant. She was having a good time, really.
But is that true?
Well, that's what we have to consider, right? Who's the one who's deciding who's guilty? And I can understand where you're coming from when it's, if we played with Margot's innocence more, like what if she was, these are actually really good points of consideration. What if she was like a sister, or what if she was like brand new, or didn't deserve to be
an assistant?
Yeah, an assistant, sure, absolutely. I think that when we come about and move into the third act, when we're all now well aware as to why people are there, and then we get into like the minutiae of like how them knowing that Chef Slovak knows who they are then degrades the situation, causes them to like begin to realize how bad things are. And this comes to like a climax when the fake cop comes in and they think they're going to be saved, and they find out the cop is actually working for Slovak's kitchen.
Right.
Because they've all done this before. I think
I read immediately.
Really, yeah, that's the one thing you could call, right? Like I saw that too.
That was so obvious.
Yeah. I think that one thing that we have taken into consideration is that Slovak did give her a chance. And Slovak was going to provide her with the capability of being out of there scot-free. I think he did see her as an innocent at first, but then she lost that chance when she called the cop and she betrayed his trust. And when it comes to the way in which the processes come about here, I can see how people would lose, kind of like, because they bury the lead a little bit when it comes to like what he's going to do. He says he's going to kill her, he's going to die, and then he doesn't, and then he does again, and then he doesn't. It can be a little bit weird because we're not only dealing with just, it would be completely different if it was just Margot's story. It's not. It's everybody's story. So we have to go about, we have to do what we can to mentally put places in our mind to open up our chance to understand the exposition and see how everybody's little pieces fit into here. Because again, you nailed it right when we first started talking. This was a character piece. This is an ensemble piece. Nobody is interested in regards to how Chef Slovak and Margot are going to be able to do what they're doing without the preamble of the initial criticisms, the initial reasons, the initial story that's brought in by this cast and why they're here and how it has to resolve. What I do find interesting is that towards the third act, right when you were talking about it, you mentioned that she found a loophole. And I think it was more of a loophole because I don't think people give Slovak enough of a chance to realize how hurt he really is and how justified he might be in taking the actions that he's taking. And this might be speaking to like, you know, the fact that I do like in these kind of like tongue-in-cheek kind of movies, I tend to root for the bad guy as long as they give me like enough reason to do so. And I think they did.
Well, I'll agree with you there because I think one of the best parts about his performance in here was when he was making the cheeseburger.
Absolutely. So like let's talk about that because that's the most important scene in the entire movie. It really is. We go about, and after we finish the second act, we find out that Slovak's main sponsor, I guess for lack of a better term, is donned a pair of angel wings that are made out of paper mache or whatever, and then he is dropped into a shark pit and he is eaten alive. And
I think he's just drowned.
He's just drowning, but there's.
I mean, my idea of it was so cheesy.
Man,
it was like shark pit.
I love it. I love it. By the time the second act ends, the third act begins. Everybody is messed up. They realize what's going on, and that's when Margot tries to make her escape because Slovak gives her the chance to, because he realizes you don't deserve here. He gives her a chance. She goes about, walks along the grounds, and finds out that Slovak's past, this amazing, like Gordon Ramsay giant, this entrepreneur, this capable genius, started as a fry cook in a burger place. And we find that out by these pictures that, honestly, if they were, I'm sure they were doctored and everything, but man, these props were great. They really, I still remember in my head while we're talking about this, the smile on Ralph Fiennes' face. It was a young Ralph Fiennes, but it was depicting Slovak on his first job where he got Employee of the Month at like Benny's Burger Hut or something like that. It was great. You realize how unfortunate, and that's when I began.
Joy for his craft.
And you begin to understand the downfall of this person, and that also for cynically minded people. And when it comes to movies like this, I definitely put on my cynic hat, my sociopath hat for sure, because that's part of the way I enjoy it. I'll admit it. It's a problem. I'm working on it, everybody. Calm down. I'm in therapy. It's fine. But that being said, it gives you a reason to understand, like, wow, this guy at one point was happy, and then he got famous, and he tried to stay happy. And these people, or at least Slovak thinks, these people took that away with them with their criticism, their apathetic ways of critiquing his art, and the pompous ways in which they thought they had the right to tell Chef what to do. And that's really what this whole thing hinges on. We have a bunch of people here who think they have the right to tell Chef how to cook. And then we have one person who realizes he was happy once. But that's also how she's able to get back and get her freedom. Because as we find out, to a ridiculous degree, Chef Slovak believes that, you know what? In some ways, the customer is still right. And if you don't like what I'm serving you, then by all means, well, I mean, you can't leave the restaurant because I'm going to kill you. But at the very least, I should do what I can to make your last dinner a good one. Margot picks up on this. And after going through and being recaptured, she was actually given a job to do. She had to bring a barrel back to the kitchen for some reason, which we never found out what the barrel was because it happened after Tyler killed himself. At first, I thought, oh, it's the barrel that he's going to stand on to hang himself with his tie after this. Oh, and also, a little bit of an aside here. That scene where you do see Ralph Fiennes whispering into Nicholas Holt's ear, and Nicholas Holt's face goes to kind of calm and like, okay, you're going to give me some critiques? to the way his face just crumbles and he begins to tear up and start crying. We never hear what Chef Slovic says to him.
No, he destroyed him.
He destroyed him.
Yeah, that's great.
But then like the next scene, we see Margot looking in the back and we see like, you know, Tyler's feet swinging back and forth because he killed himself. Nicholas Hoult has been, ever since the, he is in The Great, where he plays the King of Prussia or something like that. I have to double check on that. And my God, he does such an amazing job. He is an actor that has been on my radar since the X-Men movies. And I really do love the fact that he has a capability of just going so hard into the camp, but still being able to do like dramatic stuff. Granted, this isn't the best example because, you know, he's a sycophant. Like it's a character that he's playing. He's putting on a mask and everything. But every once in a while, you see Holt pop up and he's just like, man, I understand why you got the job. I understand why you're a working actor, and scenes like that are why. Anyway, back on track. We find out that Margot, you know, goes into Chef Slovic's home. She finds the old pictures of when he was a fry cook, and then she realizes the only thing that the chef wants is to be appreciated for doing a good job. He wants his joy back. And so, before the third act ends, before Slovic is able to make sure that everybody puts on their s'more hats and ends up burning up the entire island in a flame of glory, she's able to find out that, you know what, this is what he wants. This is what I have to do to get out of here. So, being a proper customer, she says, you know what? I don't like your food. No offense, but I'd like to send my order back, specifically. To which Slovic replies, well, is there something else that I can make that make you happy? And she says, I want a cheeseburger.
Oh, if she had ordered anything
but that.
Yeah.
And I had to give credit to Ralph Fiennes as well, because actors who have been doing it for a while, and we talked about this, like, you know, again, we're recording this like in the new year. We're like towards the end of January. I'm going to bring up another title that we talked about earlier today, you and I, because this isn't the first time that we've seen each other today, which is super cool. But in Last of Us, we have, which is a series on HBO, we have actors who are very well capable, and we talked specifically about scenes in which the physicality of what they're doing can give as much as, you know, good exposition. Ralph Fiennes has this honed in, as most capable actors who have, you know, 20, 30 plus odd year career know how to do. The look on Chef Slovic's face, that little twitch in his mouth when he begins to smile, a real smile, the first real smile he's had in the entire movie, he realizes that he can actually cook to give somebody joy. And that is what changes it. And then ultimately, we have these beautiful scenes of him making an onion burger, Ohio style, where you put, like, you know, the onions on the end, and you smash it down, and you flip it over and let them just cook and like emulsify. Yeah, I know my burgers, people.
Okay, Ohio style it is.
Now, that being said, and then he just gives it to her, and she ends up eating it. And again, Taylor-Joy does a good job of like just emoting how good this burger is. But then she still has to play. She has to say, my eyes are a bit bigger than my stomach. Could I get this to go?
How awful is that for him?
He
thought
he nailed it. And like, that's a situation too, because I think that he bought it and he was okay with it because he knew that Margot enjoyed the burger. And that was her golden ticket. That was like, you know what? You really don't deserve to be here. And now I have to be a good chef for you. So here, you're allowed to leave.
And the great thing about that scene for me was the contract that was committed to.
Absolutely.
She even drops a $10 bill because she said, what's that going to set me back? And they said $9.95.
My favorite line is when she says, I want with American cheese, and immediately finds is like, American cheese is the best cheese to make for a burger because American cheese doesn't split. It's like, it's great.
He's still educated.
Yeah.
There were some really fun things about this show too, like the menu set up as we're reading it, as if we're in there at the restaurant reading what it is, and like all of the ridiculousness that comes from that too. There are some really good things about this show.
What do you think was popping up? Because we're getting close to the end here of our episode. We still have a few minutes left, but what do you think from a specialty standpoint, some of the challenges that were dealt with? Because, I mean, like, this was an ensemble film. It isn't a situation where you're just going to have like a showrunner, that kind of thing. It's a different point of chemistry. You have to make sure that people are competent and capable with this cast. I mean, that's not really a question. You're going to get that, but it's the way in which these intricacies work. What do you think were some of the challenges? What do you think were some of the advantages of this particular cast? And ultimately, you know, the golden question, is it a different movie if we switch out the people who played these pieces?
Yeah, it's definitely a different movie.
How so?
Just in the sense that, like, I started thinking about that, and I thought that there's quite a few people that could play the role of Chef, but I just don't see them playing it the way that he played it, and I don't want to see that. Same thing with the role of Margot and Tyler. All of the supporting cast, I wouldn't adjust anything. Yeah. I think that they were incredible at what they did. With regards to, you know, the core three, I'm talking about Chef, Tyler, and Margot. I can see several actors playing those roles and still having it be a really, really great film.
Yeah.
But I'm also very, very happy with the cast that it is. So I don't know that I would change anything. It was really fun.
Do we have any kind of situation? Because I love talking to you when it comes to typecasting, because it's actually a much more complicated situation than people talk about. It's like, oh, you play one part, that's all you're going to play. Well, no. I mean, it's a situation where it comes in where, you know, people get talented playing with certain points of temperature in movies, and, you know, careers can be made out of that. That can be done very well.
I mean, Leguizamo would be a really great shout out for typecasting. Yeah. I think that he is an absolute great choice for that role because he can handle it, and he makes sense for the role, and he makes sense for the ego that goes into it, but also there's just so many different levels to what he did with that character, that being typecast in a role like that would just be amazing. I would never turn down a role like that as long as I was in for what the script.
But did it feel like any of them were phoning it in? Because I've seen Janet McTeer. That's the thing. When we bring up,
she was so stinking good. I loved her in Ozark. I loved her in this one. No, it's just like all of these. The entire cast was terrific.
Yeah.
I really am sad that I did not get to meet Judith Light in person when I had the possibility of doing that, but she was absolutely terrific. And I think out of everybody there, she was the one that was absolutely the most, without us knowing her backstory, the most redeemed or the most innocent. She even pushes
Margot to leave.
Character to leave and save herself, which I thought was incredibly selfless. But she was so broken, and you could tell that she was so broken.
Yeah.
And I thought that she was so good at that because she's played such strong characters over the course of her career.
100%.
To see her be this kind of shell of a human being was not typecast at all. And I thought that she was terrific.
I think when we jump into production, from the wiki, filming began on September 3rd, 2021 in Savannah, Georgia, with cinematographer Peter Durning and film editor Christopher Tellefson. Film locations included the Jekyll Island shore. Jekyll Island being it is one of the Sea Islands and one of the Golden Isles of the Georgia Barrier Islands. So people did have to make sets on the beach, and they did have to get there by boat. What are some of the production challenges that come with like a location like that? It isn't necessarily tropical, but at least it's within the United States, but it is isolated. There is no doubt in my mind. I mean, just like looking at the wiki, you can tell that set had to move via boat to some of these dressings, and we're talking.
I don't know. I would have to say that those were just exterior shots because everything was interior.
Well, they were walking on the beach, though. I mean, you have to have like a correlation between A and B team.
For those exterior shots, I don't feel like they went out to the remote location and had a structure built for them to film in.
Gotcha.
I feel like it was just, today we're going to do the scenes where we're walking to and from, and we're setting up all of that, and then everything else is in the controlled studio.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anytime you need to get people to and from and stuff like that, there's going to be more of a challenge. This one didn't seem all that difficult.
I mean, like, that's kind of the thing, too. Like, I keep putting it up a lot where it's like, I can imagine this being a stage play. That's because it's shot like one. You're right.
Right. And it very much felt like that for me, too.
People wonder, like, when we say that, what does that mean? It means stagnant. And stagnant, I mean, I don't mean stagnant like in a bad way. I mean, like,
No, but could you see this as a stage production?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could. And I think that it would be very simple.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And
in a sense, in order to produce it.
It's because, like, you know, when I talk about it being stagnant, there aren't a lot of changes in location when it came to the story. And that's the reason as to why ensemble pieces have to do that. You're not going to get distracted by, like, you know, Tom Cruise jumping out of an airplane over Aruba. Right. You have people who are who are making the drama in this concentrated space, and they're still able to make magic happen. Which I find very interesting. I always love it when I'm able to see a film that, like, could double as a play, because then I start thinking, well, how cool would it be to see this in the theater, that kind of thing.
I think the exterior night shots would probably be the most difficult.
100%.
Because night shots are always difficult.
Yeah.
And if they did film it on that same island that they arrived at, that would be a very difficult night shoot to do, I think.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Other than that, just the whole idea of working around a kitchen and actual food.
Oh my God, the fire is on. You got to be. I mean, like,
yeah,
if we learned anything from, like, Hell's Kitchen and MasterChef and everything, we know that production can happen easily.
Noises and grease.
Yeah,
and
dude.
All of the things around the camera equipment, all of those things are just no fun. But I
remember doing a commercial once where we had to do boom work, and they had to get the shot of, like, you know, fire coming up off the kitchen, and, like, the biggest thing was just to make sure the microphone didn't get flashed. And it's just, that's the thing they have to deal with when you're dealing with that kind of environment. It can be very rough. Speaking of sound, I think that the audio here was really good. I hate, and, like, again, it's been a hot minute since I've been on a set. I'll tell you that. We're speaking from points of, like, you know, you're still, like, knees deep into it, and but I have enough experience to know that rolling sound on the beach is a pain in the ass.
You know, you're doing some ADR work.
Oh my God, man. And, like, that's what I really liked about it, because the sound nerd in me, the ADR was clean. And whatever kind of reinforcement they did to remind you that it was a sound thing. I mean, people think, hey, all you got to do is put a sound bed down of, like, you know, the Atlantic Ocean crashing against the shore, and then you're good to go. It's a lot more complicated than that, especially when you do know that just for the sake of safety, you are going to have people laved, you are going to have a boom up, you are going to have, you know, a surround team to go ahead and make sure that things are doing okay, regardless of the fact that the audio on the day might be completely wasted. You want to get it anyway, just in case. And
you have to be safe.
You have to be safe. And, like, you know, wind socks and everything be damned. If you get up enough high wind when you're on some of the scenes here, there's nothing you can do to keep that clean. And it sounded great. And another thing that I do have to, you know, really, and I know this is me really diamond cutting. First of all, like, you know, the sound sets and everything, they were generic. That's fine. The audio was good. The music they chose was good. I mean, this is kind of, we've seen movies like this before, and we've seen palettes like this before. It's nothing new. I did really enjoy the fact that we had gongs and the fact that we had, like, silence when it came to the introductions of the different courses of the meal. That was fun. But one of the things, and, like, this is something that, like, I am really impressed by with the environment that we're popping in. The clap was good because it was, like, this hypnotic thing, and the way in which they did put a reinforcement on that, you know, more reverb, like the little, like, audio tone that comes about, you know, the bing and whatever, that made me happy. But one of the things that I was really impressed about, and it's going to be a super dorky, super stupid thing, you're doing production in a kitchen, and you only heard the refrigerators and stuff when they wanted you to. And obviously, look, I get it. It's like, is that really something we have to worry about when you're watching a movie? No, it's not. But from an ex-sound engineer and a sound editor, I will tell you guys specifically, I have been kept up at nights worrying about whether or not I was able to, you know, run the plug-in that would take out the motor hum from the refrigerator in the scene where it's not supposed to be there. And I'll tell you, this dialogue and these points of exposition, everything were clean and crisp. And when you're shooting inside a heavily mechanical interior where you need to have flames going up and ice in buckets and cutting and that kind of stuff, you can't just roll sound and have everybody doing stuff in the back and just telling people, you know, remember, just mime it, just be quiet. Because regardless, in that environment with that much of a busy background, you're going to get all kinds of stuff stepping on lines, ruining dialogue, doing this and that. And it was clean and sharp like a chef's knife. And that's what we're, you know, going to call it a day, I think.
A chef's knife sound engineer. Nice.
That being said, we really do appreciate the fact that you guys are able to stick around with us and let us talk about this film. By all means, if you're into like a kooky kind of black comedy horror movie, it's a little more on the kookiness and a little. It's not Beetlejuice or anything like that. There's definitely some points here where you might want to say to yourself, "Ooh," but yeah, I would say give the menu a shot because it's definitely something that you have seen before. But the way in which like it's honoring those older films and the way in which it's able to like play with twists and turns a little bit. It's interesting, at least to watch, and it's just really nicely shot. The food looks great. That is one thing that I wanted to mention before when it came to development. Back in April 2019, it was put up that Alexander Payne was attached to direct, but in December 2019, the screenplay appeared on the annual Blacklist, a survey showcasing the most popular films still in development. And by May 2020, Searchlight Pictures got their stuff taken care of and renamed Mark Malloy as the director. And one of the decisions that was made that was popping up is that they brought in director David Gelb, and director David Gelb did Chef's Table for Netflix. So we had like specialists coming in, not only from a production standpoint, but also people who like Dominique Crenn, who actually work in that world in high culture gastronome communities, and they're able to offer some really good input too. And the shots of the food and the way in which things are meticulously put together, those are really beautiful shots and really well made.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, we do appreciate you guys' time. Please feel free to let us know how we're doing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud. Did you like the menu? Did it make you hungry at all? Did it creep you out? Let us know. Email us, pullfocuspod@gmail.com. And while you're letting us know, remember, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. Andrus, as always, thank you so very much for joining me. Man, I can't, before we recorded today, we were able to break bread at brunch earlier today, and I cannot wait to have you over or go to a restaurant and enjoy each other's company again. And I'm so very happy that given the rigorous schedule that you have, that everybody has nowadays, honestly, but especially this point of the year and with the Salt Lake and everything. I really appreciate your time, so thank you very much for coming by and talking to me, brother. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Super fun.
Everybody else, thanks a lot for your time again, and we will see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves and be good to each other. Try not to be too hungry. Bye.